Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to the panel. We are broadcasting live on Facebook today on this special Juneteenth day, also known as the Freedom Day. And I just wanted to gather a group of leaders in their community and in their city and around the nation right now during this time, as we're facing uncertain and difficult times with the pandemic and police brutality and many other things that we were facing even prior to this. We know there have been numerous discussions about leadership, accountability, and the question that keeps pressing that I'm hearing people ask about more and more often is, what can we do? So they look like they are looking for leaders and looking for people to tell them what to do next. And I wanted to open this discussion around leadership because there was a time where we would look to people, the Martin Luther Kings, the Fannie Lou Hamers, even going far as back in the Harriet Tubman and Nat Turner. And we had actually consequential figures that people would say, this is what we're doing during this time. And there seems to be that this is going to be a time and change or shift that everybody's feeling. If we're going to do something, the time is right now. So if, with that said, we're going to begin, ask this question to everybody, but I want to start with the ladies. And first up is, I want to start with Dr. Gloria Zuurveen, who is the editor-in-chief of Pace News. She's also an ordained minister. She's also a leader in her community in Los Angeles area. And I'm going to let her tell a little more about herself. And then we'll go around the panel and introduce ourselves.
Well, I just want to first thank you, Charlé, for putting this on and bringing this together. As you know, the times we are in, and for you to take the time to consider such a critical moment like this as a young adult as you are, I just want to applaud you. And I want to thank all of you who are participating here, because we do have a crisis, I would say, of leadership. And that's why we are. And so in these predicaments, and I started Pace News newspaper 25 years ago, based on circumstances such as what we are facing now. I live in the Ladera Heights area, and my child was in a school in Ladera Heights, and teacher, UCLA, in the school, white school teacher, calling our children hoochie mamas and gangbangers. And even so much as myself, as I had my daughter, who was at the time 7th grade and doing well. All of the students were doing very well. And so I talked to the teacher about my daughter as well as the other children because they were doing so well. And I said, you know, we're going to have a good crop next year of young people that are coming out of the 8th grade because they are the top of the line, you know, as far as the 8th grades in the Inglewood School District. You know Inglewood, you came out of Inglewood, Charlé. And the young lady, white lady, said to me, yeah, they would be if they didn't all want to be hoochie mamas and gangbangers. Now, this is a person that is capitalized all day long in our classrooms with our children. You understand? And so at that point, I began to like a Ida B. Wells, because that's a form of lynching, because it's lynching the psychological minds of our children. And so I began to fight to get rid of this teacher, not just to get her reprimanded, but to get her off the payroll of our tax dollars. You understand? And so that's how the paper started 25 years ago. And since then we've developed and grown into a newspaper that now we've covered the riots of 92. We've written about Tupac when he was shot in Vegas, when had just met him a couple of weeks before he got shot, you know, doing the voters registration, because Tupac was coming to terms with himself as a young man, the importance of knowing the vote. And he wanted to. They were organizing. He, Snoop, Suge Knight, MC Hammer. We were all together, had a great time talking about in a press conference how they were going to go to the convention center and began, voters registration. 2-3 weeks later, he dead. Except, it's all those things are not coincidental.
Right. And going on that further, speaking of voter registration, seems like that has been one of the push that you're hearing leaders now campaign about and continue, that we need to vote, and they're stressing it enough. And for the past, I guess, maybe 8 to 10 years, you've heard that, out of who you're having to vote for, again, it's been questionable and debate about the leadership in that. So I want to turn that question and ask about, we're facing local elections, and we're facing voting, and not only in the local, in state and federal, but also Congress and all that this year in certain states. We'll start this with Everett. How do you feel, or what can we do when it comes to voting, as far as with the registration, or what are you doing? I know you work with youth, you have your own nonprofit, Boss, and you're also a retired former attorney, and I've worked with you, and I know you're teaching these young men and boys around not only the LA area, but you went across the nation working with many young boys about just their value and their power. What do you think the power is in voting right now?
Well, I mean, the power, well, that's an interesting question. I mean, I personally, I don't think it makes a difference really whether it's a Republican or a Democrat. It really boils down to values and the values that whoever is running. I mean, so right now between Trump and Biden, there's really no choice. I mean, the choice is clear, but I'm not voting for Biden because he's a Democrat, or against Trump because he's a Republican, but rather because he speaks more to the issues that affect Black people. And that's what we should have been doing years ago. But unfortunately, I mean, the way the system works, our leaders are co-opted, they're paid off, they're compromised. And so in some respects, it really doesn't make a difference who is in charge. None of them really have our best interest at heart. And so from where I sit, the alternative is just to take care of our own and not worry about what white folk do or don't do. I mean, I got lots of white friends, so I don't have a problem with white folk. My problem really is mostly with Black folk, because the issues that affect our community that the minister talked about, we're at the bottom of all the good things in this country and at the top of all the bad things. White folk clearly have a role in that, but we are our own worst enemy, okay? And that's why we're at the bottom of everything and the top of the bad things and the bottom of the good things. That don't have nothing to do with white folk. It has to do with the breakup of the family, Black men not standing in the gap for boys. I mean, I could go down the list. And so, I mean, all of it probably is a function of 200 years of slavery and the brainwashing in terms of white supremacy and Black inferiority. Could go on and on, but we need to fix Black folk. In my opinion, we don't need to worry about white folk, because like Jim Brown said in the 30-30 edition he had the other day, he's just accepted the fact that white folk are racist, okay? Just accept that and then do what you got to do. But I think we use it too much as an excuse for not handling our own business.
And I'm going to open that up to everybody on the panel to chime in. I think Everett pointed out about the commonality on this panel for sure is that we are all Black. And I did want to emphasize what, as Black leaders in our community, again, when the question arises, what can we do? As Everett pointed out, focusing on what's the best interest of our race and our people first. Jermaine, April, Coach Jeff Woodard, and even Dr. Z, you guys, you want to chime in and go from there?
I agree with what Mr. Everett was saying for the most part. I don't really think we are our own worst enemy. I still want to put that on the colonizer, because we're still living in a system of colonization. So, you know, I think they use diversity and to try to divide us. And as far as like who we should vote for and all that, I think you should go according to your policies of what is best for you and your family, and take the whole personality out of choosing between this colonizer and that colonizer. More so about choosing which policies are more suitable for you and your family. I think that's what it boils down to.
Okay, April.
I agree with both Mr. Everett and Jermaine. Definitely selecting the candidate whose values and whose policies line up with yours, but even more so, not only identifying that candidate, but actually physically voting, right? Because we have people who are registered or not registered, and for the ones who are registered, they're not utilizing that right. So that's how we ended up in the situation that we're currently in with the administration that we currently have. People didn't vote, but then again, people voted, right? So we got what we got. And as someone who works with high school students and young adults, just really getting it in their head that their vote matters, because they have this notion that it doesn't. And I'm like, well, what do you talk about in U.S. government? Because I know you have to take U.S. government to graduate high school. And I hope in U.S. government that they are explaining to you all how the electoral college works. And if you knew how the electoral college works, then you know that your vote really does matter. And so just really getting that age group, that 18 to 24, to really understand your vote matters. It's more important than you think it is. But also, like Mr. Everett and Jermaine said, you pick the candidate that lines most up with your policies and your values and your convictions. That's all I got to say.
Well, I like to say in reference to that, all of you, in my opinion, are very correct, except for my position after living past, these number of years I've been living and coming out of the thickets of Mississippi and having been out here for the last 40 years. I just want to say, first of all, that I've voted, I've done it all, but I'm telling you, I've walked the walk of being a Black woman in America. And I have brothers who have been through the system. I got brothers who have been through the penal system. And I'm telling you that we have voted, and we have voted. I'm not against voting. I don't have a problem with any white man, because the bottom line of it is he's absolutely right. Dr. Everett is right. You're right, son, because the reality of it is that when they created the laws and everything on the book, we were considered 3/5 of a man. We were not even considered human. And so those laws that are governing this government of the United States of America are only governing those that made the law. Those laws were never made for us as a people. And so that's why we have a penal system so large as it is, because the laws were never made for us. And we are being judged by laws that were never created for us, because we were not human. And so how you gonna bring a human underneath laws that was never created for human and judge humans by the law that was created?
Right.
We are bound until we change the laws of the Constitution that relates to us as a people. Byron Allen, I interviewed Byron, we talked, he just did, he had to go and compromise and take 3 deals for him to get out there to be a part of the system because of an 1866 law. Those laws don't pertain to us, and we have to wake up to the reality of the laws that are on the books that they're using to lock us up and lock our people up. I got a brother from the time he was 15 years old. When I looked at his rap sheet to send him some money the other day, I couldn't believe I never had seen my brother, because we're not all like so-called, but we do need to come together. My brother rap sheet was so long, I'm like, whoa. And you know what the problem on that rap sheet that my brother had? It was all about he didn't follow orders. So they locked him back up against parole. It's out of order. And until we come together, it will never get in order. That's a real, and that starts with the law. So it doesn't matter who you vote for. Biden, who was in there with Clarence Thomas and all of that gang bang that day, it's basically all gang banging. They blue and they're red. Well, what? It's time for us to wake up. It's not about a president. It's about us setting a precedent in our lives as a Black people.
And you hit on something about waking up, and we definitely appreciate you sharing that story about even your brother and mentioning about the penal, which is also something. Jeff Woodard, I'm gonna let you speak on this, because I know you have experience as a correctional officer, and also, again, I know you work with youth. You are my AAU coach, and also for many years you coach girls basketball, and just still are active in the youth around the city of Memphis. So can you talk about the prison reform, the police brutality, and just your thoughts of what's that's going on right now and what we can do about that?
No problem. Be glad to. I spent a lot of years in the correctional business, and what we have to understand, and she's absolutely right. The correctional system was set up basically as another means of the slave system. Okay. I'm one who believes that we are still not free. We just tolerate it.
Come on, you better tell it.
I'm just being absolutely honest, and I want to say it this way. We don't understand that we have to look into how, even when the emancipation came, then you move, people always talk about Jim Crow, but they never talk about what she's talking about, the convict leasing program that was going on. Okay. And you have to understand, even in the sharecropping, where basically a Jewish man named by the Levi, if you look at it, the congressional records, he goes in on what about in 1877 to speak to Congress to say that how to put the Blacks back on the plantations.
Come on.
And that's where Jim Crow and this stuff that y'all talking about came from. The congressional record will show you the speech itself. Also, now we moved, let's talk about convict leasing and how cruel it was. In convict leasing, which U.S. Steel made massive amounts of dollars off convict leasing because they didn't have to pay for labor. The Black man drives down the street, the police pull him over and said that you was driving all over the road. They sentenced him to 60 days, sentencing him to 12 months.
From 60 days to 60 years.
Or whatever. Because it's convict leasing. When he goes into the correctional system, U.S. Steel makes the deal that we'll pay you $1 a month or whatever, and bring him out or whatever the little fee is, and put it.
Arnold Schwarzenegger sold slaves pretty much in California too. They were cutting deals just went under Schwarzenegger where they were saying, give me so many and we'll send you down, all of down there. That's why we got Leavenworth and all this stuff.
You are absolutely correct. But when it built itself and put its place within the Jim Crow system, I send you to the coal mine. All these Black folks down in the coal mine. Okay, now you put them in the coal mine to work the coal. Now the water that they had to drink, because if you go down in the mine, you'll see that the water flowing, the coals is falling off. They wouldn't even take them out to drink water. They had to drink the water that was running through the
respiratory problems,
running through the coal mine. And then sometimes some of the guys stayed down in the mine 5-6 months without seeing the light of day. Hey. I want you to understand what you're dealing with. It was convict leasing. Now you come to a modern time when I had to when we challenge in the Shelby County government here in Memphis, Tennessee about the same thing, trying to make these people understand. If you got inmates locked up, that means the taxpayers are footing that bill, folks.
Every day.
When you turn around and give a guy a private contract, now the taxpayers is paying the guy for having this private contract. When you turn around and take the inmates out of the system, send him down to work on the guy's private contract, he need to have his own employees. You take the inmates down there to do the work for him. That's still convict leasing. It hadn't went anywhere. She's absolutely right.
So how do we, or what do we do about that? What is the leadership role to lead people from being leased or being convict in that situation?
We have to move forward. See, when we look at law change and the Black Lives Matter and the thing, and trust me, it's a beautiful thing to see a massive amount of people protesting different colors of skin. I don't get into the race nonsense because they back us into foolishness when we get into race. The whole system of race was structured by European white for the sole purpose of taking land and resources. Because if I can take the race, dissolve the race, create you as non-existent, then I can take the land. If I take the land, I also get the resources that go with the land. You hear me? So that's the whole process of what was going on. We have to get legislation in that institution, that prison reform system, as well as what we're doing outside. We can't neglect it. Matter of fact, if you really want to find out how good a police officer will be on the street, they should be mandated, which I said for years. The first thing you do before you put them out there with the public, put them in the correctional institution. Because if they can diffuse in the correctional institution, and they can de-escalate and they show you I got the capabilities and wherewithal to be able to de-escalate when I approach somebody, because that's the key in when you're dealing in law enforcement, whether it's in that prison system or whether it's on the street. Can you de-escalate? So now they make it mandatory that you have a police officer, he has to go in the correctional center for his first 12 months behind them bars with the inmates. Now the psychological test, you be marking it out. That's pretty. That's so pretty ineffective. I put you in the line of fire with those inmates. Then I find out if you can stand up to it. Because if I can de-escalate in a correctional facility, I can surely de-escalate in the public world.
Right. And
I agree with 80% of what you said, but somebody else go right ahead.
And you mentioned about police training and how they should be put in the same type of practice or training of the correction officer. And I know it has been suggested that we need police officers from the community to police us. But the other question that has come up during this time is about defunding the police and us self-policing ourselves. And to me, that takes more of a leadership role when you say you want to self-police yourself and, make or self-police your own community. I want to talk about, in that regards, about the policing of not just necessarily with authority, but just policing in general. Because we see policing in education, we see policing in healthcare, we see policing in politics, and how does this mindset, you guys were picked on a basis of you guys' mindsets of being leaders, but how does that mindset become something that more people can follow, or more people can feel that, that they can become leaders?
We have to have that same kind of discipline with each other, with our neighbors that look like each other. I mean, we used to have that kind of relationship back in like the 60s and in the 70s a little bit, and they disrupted that a little bit. And they created, gangs and all this division with us, with the media, with the music, the entertainment, with the homosexuality, all of that stuff. So I think if we was to get back to a form of discipline with, we could always self-discipline ourselves with guns, but I think it comes mentally first. And it's because you have Black police officers pulling out those Black kids over there in Atlanta So I don't think it's about Black officers policing us. I think it comes down to our mental, about just how we have to be on code with each other and be on the same team. So I think it's mental. It's all mental.
I agree with him. You know, we come from, as you know, I call Dickens of Mississippi. I come from a village. My mom, I mean, you know, I could go up the street and Miss Vi would give me some blackberry pie. You understand? I'd go down the street, Miss Claire May would, honey, give me some buttermilk and cornbread. You understand? So I didn't have, and believe me, we knew to get in before dark. What we have to do is get back to the reality of the family and the community and the church. The church became faith-based and left the faith out on the family. You understand what I'm saying? Because they began to become so caught up in the faith-based. When I say they began, not all, but the faith-based, they began to focus on nonprofit and all of those things that built on the dollar, but really was not raising the family in the context of family and taking care of one another in the manner in which the church allegedly was built on. We have to get back to the community of policing ourselves, and it starts at home. But then we have to look at foster children and that they've already driven out of the home through all means of methods, because the dollars are more valuable for the child to be fostered to somebody else. You understand?
Yes,
And it is for them to be in the home with auntie or cousin. You have to get a permit now almost to get your children. Where Big Mama raised me. My uncles raised me. We were fostered, but we were not fostered. We were fostered, but we were not fostered because we had families that didn't have a 15-room house and got 20 children, cousins and things down the street, and they sleeping by themselves in a 15-room house. That's what we got going on now. See, Big Mama would take a 2-room shack and put everybody who needed her to lay on their back. Didn't matter what it was, cousin or whomever, it was community. But we're living in homes now by ourselves in many of our community, and family members are down the street homeless, not because it's just because no, even children with disability. We never had children that were so ADA tested and all. We whip they behind and move on with it. You understand what I'm saying? But now, because the system, when they see what it was when after integration, just like I wrote an article about 15 years ago about integration without orientation, because when they integrated us from the all colored school that I came out of and went into the integrated school, it was a problem because out of 30 children, out of each class, back in the days, they're talking about children, 30 in a classroom, but back in the days, it was 30 in a classroom and 3 classes of each student and 1 teacher, and we all were respectful in the classroom with 30 children and 1 teacher, because we had systems in place, such as economic, home economic, such as what the young lady said earlier, you know, we had civics, government, we had people to monitor hallways and be accountable. Young people that was raised up, and then we knew. But what I'm saying is that whole system is now basically left up to someone who wants to make money. Just like right now, what good is, I tell my grandson, I know y'all want you to get education, but I'm telling you, what good is education if you come out with $200,000 with no salvation from the economic that is getting ready to kill you, because now you can't even get a job to go pay for that school that they done told you that you needed in order to have. It's futile. And so that's why as Black people, we have to begin to come back and build on what we have. And that's the foundation that's already been laid by those ahead of us that have gone on. All we have to do is build on it. Stop all the nonsense. Stop all the shooting. Stop all the killing. Love each other. Come together as a Black people, and not necessarily against any people. But we have to stop our own nonsense first. And we have to come home and take care. Daddy, if you got 5 children out there by 5 different women, y'all get along and build a family. Get along. Get along. Stop all these women. Come out, that's my baby daddy and all. Stop it. And all y'all come together and put your money together and start building. You got 15 children by 15 darn men. Y'all all need to come together. You got something in common. Here, you got a seed up in there. Do something about it. Build together and make that family whole. Stop fighting against each other, women, because you got the different daddy. You done had that seed, you done planted it. Y'all together now. Build on that and become a community.
Goes back, Miss Gloria, to what Jermaine said, that mental capacity and discipline. You know what I'm saying? Discipline.
You know, they sitting up here. My grandmama told me one time, honey, when I was out there, and some little boy pulled up in front of the house in a nice car. Big mama sitting on the front of the porch. I jumped off the porch and went and was standing up at the car, honey, at the boy car. Big mama just stayed there and just watched and rocked and watched and rocked. Okay, I got through. The boy drove off. He never got out the car. He never tried to talk to me. It was never. Big mama said, if I ever catch you standing up while a man is sitting down, I'm gonna whip your behind till you won't even know you got one. Don't you ever let a young man sit down while you standing up, talking to him, holding on the car. You get what the psychological, you get what I'm saying?
Yes, yes.
Huh? No,
yes,
you respect yourself, she was telling me. You respect yourself at 14 years old. You understand?
Right.
You don't sit up and let no man do that. So we have to bring these young people back. Used to be you could go down to an elderly house and what's your name, and they would take that young man. We have to. Then they got to call mentors now, but it's almost like you got to be in an organization to mentor. No, excuse me, but colored people, Nigerians or whatever you might want to call yourself, go get a child and take care of it.
I want to invite me, Pastor Wright, into the conversation. Again, we're glad to have everybody, and we want to hear each voice. I appreciate that. So, Pastor Wright, welcome again to the panel, and we just chiming in on leadership and right now on the road. Feel free to just hop in and share.
Yeah, well, I missed the original question, but I know it had to do something with us policing ourselves. And I think Miss Gloria has a little bit of preaching in her too. So I don't know what church you go to, but you got a little bit of preaching in you.
Praise him all day long.
Both you and Jermaine spoke to the context of what we know, the African proverb that says it takes a village to raise a child. And what has happened since the 60s is that people have moved to individualism. So everyone has been taking care of their own, and whether it's been lack of trust within the church or lack of trust within families or lack of trust within the communities. Used to be a time, I grew up with you, like Miss Gloria, I used to be able to go down the street and get something from a neighbor's house. But these days, I don't trust to send my children out to my neighbor's house because I don't know what they will encounter in my neighbor's house. And so now we are all concerned about predators. We're concerned about what cultures they may encounter and how our children may have to interact or engage in those cultures. And especially when we live in diverse communities, you know, so we're a little bit more cautious. We don't go out as much. And COVID has forced us to either stay put at home or to spend more time actually in our neighborhoods. There are people walking in the streets now that you have never seen before, because in the past, we just would drive up into our nice house and go into our garage and go inside. We don't see the people outside. So we're actually strangers in our own neighborhoods these days. But how do we come to policing ourselves? How do we come back to a place where we are accountable to each other as a part of our culture, or it's part of our churches, or part of our neighborhood, or part of our families, or even just those 4 or 5 people that's living in your house, to be accountable to one another? Is that we have to open up our ears to listen, and we have to change our mindset. We have gotten to a place where our young people are like, you can't tell me nothing. You ever correct somebody young for something that—
get back to the foundation. Yeah.
To level you up, sister. Stop walking outside with your house shoes and your hair in a
we gotta do
thing. You know, come on, let's level up. Let's be presentable as an individual before we step out. You know, I was just raised that way. My mother would have died if I ever left the house with house shoes on. You know, and it's just when you try to help somebody to think bigger, to think more presentable, to think that, yeah, you can go to college. Yes, you can do. They have such a mindset that many times you're trying to fight through those things. That's one level of policing that I can't do mindset out of our people, because our people are brilliant. Our people are intelligent. Our people can get an opportunity if they try hard enough. You know, I know we have some barriers. We have a lot of barriers that we have to overcome. But the truth is if you don't ever try to overcome it, you never will overcome it. You can limit yourself by those own imposed, self-imposed barriers. And so all of that just to say that when it comes down to policing, there's a lot of reforms that have to happen in our nation, a lot of reforms. You know, we have to be honest about how the whole institution of police began. It began in slavery, how it's been used continually to keep our people with the mindset that somebody is over you, somebody is looking over you, and then break those biases that are evident in the police force, whether it's a Black person or a white person or even a Hispanic person that is policing others. How do we break those mindsets that people are people and they deserve to be treated with respect? And our judicial system is of the same mindset. We're not treating people with the same levels of opportunity, not treating the people with the same paradigm that you are innocent until proven guilty, as opposed to coming in thinking that they're already guilty and I'm just about to give them time. So it's a big picture. It's a big picture, and we got a lot of work to do. And I just encourage my brothers and my sisters, don't get tired of working. You know, the Bible says, don't get weary in your well-doing, because in due season we shall reap a harvest. Now, whether or not you believe in the word of God or not, it doesn't matter. That is still a very true saying, that don't get tired. Keep pressing forward. Nothing's going to change unless we continue to press forward. We had a period of time where we just kind of sat, and now it's time to get back up. So let's not get tired in making those changes that need to be made for our community and for our country as well.
Yes, and you mentioned about this period of time, and that's what it seems like everybody now is saying, now is the time, now is the time. April, I know you are the executive director of the Destiny House. You also are a TSU alum, and you advocate for, let me make sure that everybody knows that's Tennessee State.
Yeah, I covered the Tennessee State and Jackson State game at the Liberty Bowl every year. It's a great time to come together. Lots of,
yeah, and what I wanted to talk about, we still are going to stay on schedule at last, is about education and educating ourselves. And Dr. Z, you spoke about, this debt and how we are told that, these degrees and this education will lead to some type of liberation or some pseudo form of liberation. But I'll start with you, April, on this. And Jermaine, again, I know you're a historian. You can talk about your research and stuff, and everybody can chime in. But what is it that you're telling those students that you work with on a daily basis about their education and the significance of it?
Well, first, when people hear you say that you work with young people, helping them get to college, what I have to also get them to realize is I'm not just talking about 4 years, right? Because every student is not ready for that type of commitment, or even want to do a 4 years. So the students we work with, either they're interested in community college or 4-year colleges or trade technical, or they want to go straight into the workforce, or they're interested in the military. But it's kind of piggybacking off what Miss Gloria said, having them, and Pastor Wright, having them to think big, right? So I want them to get the education, but I want them to take advantage of those 2 to 4 years, not only to grow, but to network, utilizing those office hours with your professors, networking again, utilizing the career center, networking again, getting those internships and networking again, but using those formative years, that 18 to 24, to really grow as a young person, and really decide during that, use college or whatever those post-secondary years look like up until the age of 25, using that time to figure out what your mark is going to be on the world, right? But getting them to think big. So one thing I challenge my students, especially the ones that are getting trades and technical certifications, to go into business for yourself. So like my students that are cosmetologists, they're now licensed. I challenge them. I give them 1 year. Once they come out of school, I give them 1 year to work under somebody. One, so they can learn, right, the business aspect, but two, not to get complacent. Because I think oftentimes we get in these situations and they look good, they feel good, but we also get stuck. And I don't ever want any of my students to get stuck. But it's more than me just thinking big. You have to see it. I can shine some light on it, but you have to want it for yourself. And another thing that I run into with my youngsters, they want it real fast. They want it microwave, put it in the microwave, hit 30 seconds, boom, you got a degree. No, it don't work like that. And so when it's not happening as fast as they want it to happen, as Pastor Wright was just saying, you got to nurture it, right? You got to put in their work so you can get your harvest. But they want it so fast. They want to graduate high school in May, and by the end of August, they done got this 2-year degree or this 4-year degree or this certification, and they making millions. Everybody wants to make millions, but no one wants to put the work in. They don't want to put the work in. They want it fast. They want it quick. And it's so easy for them to get discouraged when it's not happening right then and there. So that's a whole nother ball game. So sometimes I have to put myself in the mix. And I say, well, how would you feel if I'm coming to you, excuse my language, half-ass? Because that's just how I got to talk to them. How would you feel if I'm telling you to do this and do that, but I didn't finish my degree at TSU because I didn't get it in 2.5 months when I first got there, or things didn't go the way that I go? Would you actually listen to me if I'm coming to you with half information, if I don't know what I'm talking about? Like, how would you feel if I came to you like that? You know what I'm saying? So I try to tell them there's a reward at the end, right? And my reward is I get to help you all. This is not what I went to college to do, but you want to make the Lord laugh, tell them what your plans are. Working with other people's kids that's not what I wanted to do, but that's what I'm doing, and I love it. And when you are reaching them and getting to them, you start to see those wheels turning in their heads. And so once you got those wheels turning, just holding on to them just a little bit, just keeping them encouraged is a big thing. Keeping them encouraged, and just letting them know you got to put some work in. There's some work that has to be done. It's not going to come quick. I wouldn't even want it if it came quick. But there is such a great reward at the end when you've actually put the work in and you've earned it. And I'm so proud of my students. I have more students now starting their own businesses than I had when I first started working with young people back in 2012. And these are some solid businesses. I have some cosmetologists. I have some barbers. I have an herbalist. Happy birthday, Morgan. I have a little cousin who just started her own hair care line. And these are really legitimate businesses, and I'm proud at the work that they are putting in and the work that they are continuing in. And like I tell them, just use those years, that 18 to 25, figure out what you want your mark to be on the world and put your work in.
Right. And that's so good to hear that they are doing that. Especially we need Black entrepreneurs, and definitely, hopefully they're able to employ more Black students and have interns as well to keep that going. Jermaine, I'm gonna let you chime in as well. So go ahead, take your stance.
Yeah, sure. When as far as education, I would start as early as 5 years old. I know with me personally, my aunts from Philadelphia, they would send me encyclopedias on all the animals, the mammals, the fish, the birds, big old thick book. And I would just sit there and read and study it. And I would condition myself to like to learn. And it became an attribute later on down in life. So I would just say, I used to go to the library, check out 10 to 15 books, and it became a hobby of mine just because I was conditioned to like to read and learn. So I would say just put books, with all this technology that's out there, put these books in front of your kids, have them learn about the universe, have them learn about animal life, all that's more important than, what's going on in society. Have a universal understanding of how the universe works and thinks, before you even step foot into how society works, because then you're knowledgeable about everything. You know how animals relate to things as opposed to a human. You know how the earth and the universe, the sun, you know, all that stuff. It's knowledge that you should learn at a young age, and it gives you, I guess you could say, some kind of special attribute, just having that universal understanding. And once you master that, you can tap into society and mastering, you know, money and dealing with, you know, Europeans and all that. It's very easy to maneuver through that part. But for me personally, education starts at a young age, in my opinion, and that's just my personal experience.
And to piggyback on what Jermaine is saying, I definitely agree that it begins at a young age, because one of the things that I've encountered with high school students is they lack the ability to know how to do anything. If it kind of boils my bubble when I tell a student, hey, email such and such at this school that you're interested in about whatever the issue is, and they come back with, how do I do that? And I go, how do you do what? Send an email. Okay. How do you not know how? You know, it just, it gets me, because I'm trying to understand, how have you gotten to this stage of life? You 17, 18, but you can't send an email? Like, it still blows my mind. So I so agree with Jermaine when it starts young, learning how to read, because I run into that all the time. I've had seniors who they still stumbling, you know, over simple words, but that ability to know how to do stuff. Like, you mean to tell me you really don't know how to send an email? Not only not know how to send an email, but add an attachment to the email. I can understand crafting it, you worried about the language, but the actual task of sending an email is lacking. Things like that, you know. So it goes all the way back to what Miss Gloria said, you know, starting at home, their foundation, those parents.
When they were back in the day for my daughter, as I told the school board members, I mean, you know, they even called me anti-Semitic because of certain, you know, things and this. And I said, you know, hey, I love Jesus Christ, one of the greatest person, you know, Jews to ever live. So I'm not anti-Semitic because I'm speaking up for my Black children. I said, I'm not speaking. When I would go to the school board meetings, I said, I'm not here for my child, because I've always been here for my child. That's why I'm here now. And that's why I was able to hear this woman talk about my child and other children. I said, but it's the latchkey kids that parents are not home when they get home to talk to someone about what happened in that school today, that I'm standing at this school board to talk to you about. This teacher gonna have to go. She got to go. I'm not saying put a reprimand in her folder. She has to leave out of the district because of the detriment that she has caused. And I'm just saying this to piggyback on what all of you are saying, because the reality of it is that it's by design, honey, that those babies don't know the email. It's by design. When my daughter was 9th grade at Crenshaw High School, I walked up in the classroom because I had gotten a F on a progress report. A F on a progress report in math. And it was a math that they were testing our children on. It was some type of, because see, what happens in our school systems is that these publishers don't really give a darn about our children. They making the money off the books that they're publishing and coming out of their college classes on and selling them to the highest bidder at the school systems. So they don't really care about your children learning what's in the books. They just want to make the money off the books. And so what's happening is that our children are encased in this classroom and systems whereby it's never designed for them to rise above being a servant to the system of his education system.
Mr. Charlé, please.
Okay.
But I've been listening patiently, and what I hear now, and I'm gonna say this, I don't know anybody on this panel except Charlé, and I don't mean no offense to nobody. I was invited to share my opinion, and that's what I'm gonna do. But what I've heard is these people, okay, these people I'm assuming are white folk, but these people are not our problem, okay? And I've also heard, I'm gonna do what's best for me and my family, and that's good because you always got to put yourself first, but the problem is we put ourselves first to the exclusion of the group, okay? So we do what's good for us, but not what's good for the group. And as long as we keep doing this European ruggedness, individualism, we're gonna stay at the bottom of all the good things, at the top of all the bad things, because we don't do for each other. Education is, always has been, and always will be the antidote, okay? But it's what kind of education?
That's exactly what my point was. I was getting to.
But it's not the schools, the books, they need math and they need science, but they also need
Life skills.
for us to teach them who they are.
Mm-hmm.
We got to teach them to stop making excuses, okay? Because the white man is however the white man is, and the white man has been how the white man has been since the beginning of time.
Yes.
I come from nothing, absolute nothing, with an alcoholic dad, a mom with an 8th grade education. But I've been a lawyer for 45 years because I didn't make no excuses, okay? And we got to stop making excuses for our kids. We got to stop making excuses for each other, and we got to get serious about what needs to be done. We talk about we don't have resources. We got all kind of, we got athletic talent that's generating billions and billions of dollars, but we've been so brainwashed as a people that we raise these boys up and then we turn them over to the same people that we on this call talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We raise
That's
them.
exactly the point. But then
because we've been brainwashed to think that white folk are superior and black folk are inferior. And what we're teaching our boys is that we all made by God and we all have a sense of power.
And that's what most mentors are doing. That's real good. But what I'm saying is the same thing you're saying. But the fact of it is, most of our people like yourself, I know you at Long Beach State, most of our professors who got the education didn't come back to the communication of the
well, I've worked with 110 black boys from the inner city.
I do, and I know Jewett Walker as well, the 100 black men and all of them.
Well, but again, we're making excuses, okay?
We're not excuses, but we have to face the reality that our school system
the school system is not a problem. If we know the school system is not teaching our kids, then we need to step.
Exactly, but when are we gonna come together and build our own school?
About the school
system. So let's all, that's what we want to talk about in common, stand together and come together. That's why we wanted this conversation to have leaders.
I hear a lot of excuses, and again, white folk are white folk, and so we have to teach our kids to win no matter what white folk do.
Right. I think everybody can agree upon that.
And we all agree upon that.
We all have our priorities, and Pastor Wright mentioned there are many barriers that we're all facing as a race, as humans in general, especially during this time. So to your point, Everett, I want us to end with each of us sharing then what do we do right now? What matters now to each one of you guys, and what do you do now once you identify that cost? We'll start with Coach Woodard. Jeff, since your voice hasn't been heard in the last minute. You're on mute.
Where I want to go is from here. Let me start somewhere, because I think I'm probably the oldest person of the panel.
I think I'm the oldest.
Well,
One of you on that.
And I want to say this first. Unfortunately, I saw the Ku Klux Klan dressed in their white.
So did I.
Unfortunately, I saw the Ku Klux Klan burn the cross 2 different times.
So did I.
And unfortunately, I had the Ku Klux Klan call me on the phone with some threats at Middle Tennessee State. I was cool with that too. We still cannot be deterred about what we have to do as a people. Education is a thing that we must do, but we also have to educate in truth. And the truth of the matter is, yes, the first slaves came from West Africa right about 400 years ago. But we also have to teach our children that the slavery was in process almost 150 years before the first Africans came from West Africa. We have to be truthful about it and explain. Because if we look and we research our history, the conquistadors, the Spanish, they clearly said that in the Carolinas, the people that they recognized, and the natives that was already here, that those people looked like the Ethiopians. So Black folks was already here. Matter of fact, the three largest pyramids that's actually known to mankind, the three largest that sit on the face of the earth is on this continent. So we didn't just get here. I'm sorry. That's a myth. All us are not ancestors of people that came from Africa. Our folk was already here. Matter of fact, when they test the archaeological civilizations of some of the faces and the structures that they have built, the Aztec clearly says that some of those structures are 6,000 years old. Architect came from us. We taught it to everybody else, the ability to build. When they had to form Washington, D.C., they couldn't even do a design, a layout, a plan. They had to bring the slaves up to build. Washington, D.C., the monuments, 6 or 7 of the Ivy League schools was designed and constructed by slaves because they didn't have the intellectual know-how. We are powerful people, as Mr. Glenn said. We got to stop. It's fine to deal with white people. I got white friends just like I got black ones, but I don't need them to feel good about Jeff Woodard. Do I make any sense? I don't need you to make me feel good. I love the neighborhood that Pastor Wright talked about. When I got off my bicycle at night, got back up the next morning, it was still sitting in my front yard. I love the fact that when we played baseball in the street, and back then people didn't have a lot of vehicles, they were riding the bus. So Miss So-and-so, when we looked up on the hill and saw her with them bags of groceries in her hand, one of us knew, put that ball and bat down, go up there, get the groceries, and walk them to her house. Didn't nobody have to tell us that. That was understood. So Mr. Glenn, Brother Everett, right. We have to get back to ourselves, the self-policing of ourselves. But also, too, you have to put everybody's feet under the table. I heard a few weeks ago when Snoop Dogg came at Oprah Winfrey about all this and not coming out. Okay, but Snoop, y'all guilty too. Because back in the early 80s, when myself, who work with kids and love to work with children and grow them and develop them, Charlé will testify to that. When you work with the kids and he sit there and on BET, they came up and started this kind of thug type movement. It had moved from rap and it became hip hop and it was getting foul. As he's saying about the way you dressed, as the pastor said, how you go out the house looking, stuff like that. That was marketed to our children. And a whole lot of black people got filthy rich off of it. When you get through Snoop Dogg, Ice Cube, Ice-T, you sold that thug stuff. I sit in correctional facilities with them Jordan tennis shoes, watching young men get their brains beat out for somebody to take some tennis shoes. See, everybody guilty got to put their feet under the table. An athlete has been our mantra, from Jesse Owens to Wilma Rudolph to Muhammad Ali. That's what we cottoned to. It made us feel superior when they was triumphant. Am I right or am I wrong? I know I'm telling the truth.
That's right.
So you took that. You took Michael Jordan and Nike sitting over here watching BET with all this thug stuff, pants hanging off, and all of this. Boy, them folks making a whole lot of money. Some of us here in Memphis was opposed to that and said, y'all gonna set our race back 40 years with this nonsense. Where everybody got they make their money. But the truth is all money is not good money.
3-6 Mafia.
Yeah.
Winning
all of them. I'm talking about Queen Latifah, all of them.
I'm just saying, but you know, when you say Memphis, I just thought of 3-6
But now,
Mafia.
So you're saying to you, what matters now is that we need to go back and return to how.
You get back to it. But all those who made that wealth, and them billions that they sitting on, Jay-Z and all of them selling that foolishness to our kids, you need to put your feet under the table. You need to come back. You need to help set some schools and put some educational process and teach our children some true history and give them some skills. Put the VOTEC system back. The worst thing in Memphis, Tennessee, I ever heard when they tell every kid college bound, everybody ain't meant to go to college. Bricklayers don't have to go to college. Carpenters don't have to go to college. Your house wasn't built with nobody that graduated from college.
That's right.
Okay.
The Cuomo,
right.
all of them. We got to get back.
Design.
You got our women thinking that everybody they date supposed to be clean and dressed. No, they supposed to be able to they supposed to be able to take care of their family.
That's right.
Right.
We got to get some stuff back in order. So when you get talking about Oprah, Snoop Dogg, all of y'all who made that money selling that food, because that's innocent blood. Kids sitting in wheelchairs, kids died about that nonsense, that gangster nonsense that now all y'all done moved away from and talking about you legitimate businessmen on TV with your commercials and stuff. Get your money together, come back to the neighborhood.
That's right.
Now open up some businesses and stuff in all these major cities or wherever around the United States and put some people to work. So when our kids do graduate from college, they got something to do with the degree.
Right.
Right now, if we too on that.
Hey, but we want to
a long time, but I hope y'all get the point.
No, we do. Thank you.
We do, Coach, and I appreciate you sharing that. I think that you're exactly right as far as even piggybacking to what Everett said, and like you both are emphasizing that there are some things we need to get back to as a community and prioritize those things, not necessarily making material things top priority. April, we'll go to you next and just share what matters to you now and how do you plan to address that going forward, leading by example?
It's continuing to work with my youngsters, encouraging them, showing them something different, but making sure that even with the encouragement, that is not only coming just from me, but other adults who believe in them as well. Because the reality is they got enough people fussing at them. They don't need any more adults fussing at them, but they do need some encouraging. So just like I said earlier, just using those formative years, that 18 to 25, to figure out what it is that you want to do so that you can make your mark on the world. And the reality is there has to be some type of, regardless of what you plan to do, there has to be some type of post-secondary education and training regardless. So just encouraging them, continue to encourage them, continue to provide access to them, continue to bring resources their way, but also making sure that it's not coming just from me, but also coming from other adults that, believe in them just as well.
We definitely gonna keep you lifted up and encourage you, because we know that time is
taking care of our babies.
And as Pastor Rice shared, the scripture is, be not weary of well doing. So keep that endurance up and keep working hard. Everett, you want to chime in? What matters now, and how do you want to lead?
What matters now is what's always mattered to me, and that is now, if anybody on this call, if got any alcoholics, drug addicts in your families, anybody know anything about alcoholism, drugs? Okay. So the first step to recovery is you have to admit that you're an alcoholic or you're an addict or whatever, right? And so we've been brainwashed, and everything that I hear talking, even Coach, you just talked about what Snoop and them guys do. We've been brainwashed so much, we do to each other what the white man, he don't have to do it. It started with the minstrels and all that kind of stuff. And now these guys making all this money, putting this poison into our kids' minds. It's all about brain. So we have to first admit we've been brainwashed. We don't think we've been brainwashed. We've been brainwashed. They've been brainwashed too, to think we're inferior. We've been brainwashed to think they're superior. And all of us are children of God, right? Which means I'm capable of doing whatever I put my mind to. And again, what we teach these boys, and that's what we're going to continue to do, is to show them. Because education is the key. We've just been miseducated. Okay, but education is definitely the key. And we have to get away from self and start thinking about, because unity, lack of organization, that's always been our problem. It's still our problem today. I don't care what's going on in the streets, unless we come together as one, it won't happen. And we can't come together as one because we just the way we've been brainwashed. We come together as one, then one person want to lead, and you don't like him leading, and you're going to do this, and we don't put that. We selfish. We don't put others in front of us and what their needs and what was important to them. And unless and until we do that, we can just talk all we want to, but we have to change what we do and how we relate to each other. And that comes from education too, but like Carter Woodson talked about the miseducation, and that's what and that's all tied into this brainwashing.
That's what he said. We
are, again, I say, we are our own worst enemy. We're waiting on white folk to fix what's wrong with us. That'll never happen, never, ever happen. And so we need to work with each other to bring about the kind of change that we want to see happen. And we got to put aside egos and all this other, and titles and positions, because that's not what leadership about. Leadership is not about titles and positions. It's about moving people from where they are to whatever the desired result. And that means we got to build consensus, but not if I'm just going to do something that benefits me and my family.
Right. I think we all agree on that. And that's hopefully what this panel will do. It will be more than a conversation and transform. Pastor Wright, lead it to you now to share what matters to you now and what do you plan or how are you leading going forward?
I woke up this morning with a real deep sense of gratitude for my mother. My mother was a single parent who, from the time I was in 3rd grade till I graduated from college, was holding it down by herself for 2, sometimes 3 jobs. And to see the resilience that my mother had, and during that time that she was working 2 or 3 jobs, my mother also went back to college and got an undergraduate degree. To see that resilience that she had really fostered within myself and within my family, my sister, my brother, this desire that we can do, a knowledge of that we can do. So I applaud people like April, the work you're doing with helping these young girls or young people. I thought about the opportunities that many of them have or don't have. They can't write an email because nobody's asked them to write an email before. Mm-hmm. They've never had to do it. They don't know how to do it because it's never been a need to do it. I applaud you, Everett, for what you're doing with the young Black boys and really helping our young men be men. I think back to the men and women in my life. My 8th grade coach, I woke up thinking about him, who really instilled within me. I mean, he didn't throw me away because I was a discipline problem at that time in my life. He didn't throw me away, but he gave me opportunity to learn more about myself and to grow and to be a part of something that was really strong and good. And with that, I think the most important thing that we can do now, what can we do? Each of us is really to help others, mentor our children. We need to create our own incubator labs. So whatever platforms we are given, these are our opportunities to help young people to be able to grow, to be able to learn, to be able to get this opportunity that other people don't have. You know, I'm rebranding a girls mentorship program that I've been doing for a while. So we rebranded it, and now we're reaching girls that are in that pre-college area. So they're 17, last year high school, all the way till their college years, to really help them have this sense of purpose and understand who they are and understand a lot more about their social constructs, and then also understand about how they relate with other people. How do they manage their emotions? How do they overcome, how do they press through? So those types of things, but it takes somebody holding your hand sometimes because you don't know, especially if you've never had that level of support. If your community has never given it to you, your school has never given it to you, you've not been a part of anything else. This is our chance to see where those gaps are and how we can help other children, so that they don't come out with a deficit. They don't start with these deficits in their life as adults, or even in they're going to their puberty ages, and whatever stage of life that they're in, we can help them overcome those deficits because we're helping them. We have to teach our history. The schools aren't teaching our history. You know, I'll admit I was 20 years old at University of Texas when I learned about Afro-American history, and it was called back then Afro-American history. And Dr. George C. Wright, who is now President Emeritus of Prairie View A&M, Dr. Wright would always end each class by saying, people, I submit to you that there'll be no need to host this class, to have this class here at the University of Texas when African-American history is instilled into American history. Mm-hmm. It was an eye-opening experience. You know, so we have to teach our children our history. They don't need to know we were just slaves and then we were free. They need to know what's the period before that, just like Coach said. What's the period before that? What's the period since that? How have we gotten to this place? I had a young girl live with me. She's from Brazil, and she asked me one time, she said, Mom, how is it that Black people were slaves in 100+ years ago and they still got problems? Because you don't understand the constructs that were developed following that. And most people don't. They don't see it. They don't know how to articulate it. They sense it and they feel it. People of color sense it and feel it, but they don't know how to articulate. So we have to teach them. So we mentor, we incubate, we create, we teach, we mentor, we hold hands, and we keep doing the same thing over and over again until our people are truly, truly liberated, and liberated in their mind.
Right.
Liberated in their mind, because that's the first thing that will hold us back.
So well put. And again, everybody's touching on it. And so Jermaine, I think she segued well to you. And speaking of history, and as a historian, and the things you do great on social media, I know always putting out facts about Black history and especially African American history. Talk about what matters to you now, and how do you go forward?
Yeah, I want to piggyback off what Ms. Wright was speaking about. I mean, she pretty much laid it down. She articulated it well. I can't really say it no better than her, but I do want to add in that I do like to, I mean, there's still a lot of Black history, because Black history is American history. And,
that's right.
And really it hasn't been decoded. It hasn't been, there's no book that explains it. There's no documentary, there's no movie. And, that's why I'm working on my book to put it out there, because there's still no explanation as far as why the Pilgrims pulled up in 1607, was chopping up everybody's heads for about a couple of 100 years. And all of a sudden, we have the Civil War. So there's really no explanation. And, I take a high interest into that as far as explaining and articulating it, because education is a weapon of mass destruction used against Black people. They didn't want us to read.
That's right.
So like Ms. Wright, but yeah, Ms. Wright, she articulated well. I'm real raw with my passion. I like to drop real hardcore Black history. A lot of people don't know that slavery started 1636 and not 1619. Those Black people all became free, and it was the Picot War with the Native Americans, where they would trade these natives into the islands and bring back these African slaves into Boston. That's what initiated slavery in America. So stuff like that, nobody knows. Thanksgiving, that's based off of the King's Philip War and the Picot War, and it's a paying tribute to slaughter and all those Native Americans. But Europeans celebrate it every year, as it's they know what it means, the elites, but we don't know what it means. Same thing with I just made a post the other day about the jingle bells and how the slaves in Louisiana used to rock these headgears with jingles, and that's where the song would come from. They brought that into Boston, Massachusetts, the original slave state. The governor had one of those helmets with the jingles in his office. So it's a lot of history of that's never been uncovered that we celebrate today. And
That's
I take a high interest in uncovering stuff like that.
That's right.
Right. And we appreciate it for you. Check out his site. He definitely has some facts that people there seems to be hidden to us. Like you said, that a certain part of history. I like what you even put out about Juneteenth and the origin of that today. So definitely check out. Last but certainly not least, closing with what matters now. Dr. Gloria, definitely want to hear what you think about what matters now, and also moving forward, how do you go about leading it?
Well, what matters now is that we do have to, as a people, come together to do what we know we can do, we have the capacity to do. Jesus Christ said he come to set the captives free, and we've been free for a long time. We just have to, again, like Mr. Everett and everyone else has said, you know, we have to play our part. We have to do what is right. And with the journalism class, you know, I teach at a charter school, and we've had several of our girls come out and with high honors with some of the classes that we have. I have the Parent Action Coalition for Education. This is important. We have to get parents and participation in the communities of the education of our children from the level that my brother is talking about historically, because until our children understand the images that they see every day on TV is just what they are, images, but they are not life. They're images, but they should not control our lives. And so we have to teach our young people, as with my grandson, who's 14 years old, as I'm sitting here with his list of his job. You know, I'm telling him, you don't have to go and get a summer job. I have Pace News Incorporated. I have a Parent Action Coalition for Education, a nonprofit organization that deals with educating young people, as well as parent education. Because we have to understand, yes, we are not, no one is making excuses, but at the same time, we have to hold people accountable, like brother BET owner just recently said, okay, the $1 trillion, look at pacenewsonline.com. All of you, invited you to go to the website. Pace News been around for 25 years. Website is very active. And look at the words of Mr. Johnson in reference to a plan for reparation until we come to terms, because everybody now, I think we need to lead and lead in the context of organizing around the responsibility of this United States of America toward Black people. Yes, Black people needs to be compensated for reparations on the basis of what they've done, as just they've done to the Japanese, and to now, even every day, they're still sending money to Israel over there to take care of business off of our tax dollars. Most of those police are being trained in Israel on our tax dollars to come back over here and use the Palestinian techniques that they use on the Palestinian. So if that's an excuse or whatever anybody want to perceive it as, then be so it, okay? Because our highly educated folks done got so highly educated they know earthly good. So I'm not talking about anyone in particular. I'm just saying that we as a Black people have to wake up and realize, yes, we do have a common enemy, and we've always had a common enemy. Okay, and yes, we have those Uncle Tomites, as I call them, who work with the common enemy. And those are the people we have to hold accountable. Those politicians, like Fannie Lou Hamer said, we might have to take them on out and drown them if they're not doing our biddings, okay? And I'm not saying it in a sense of being terrorist, as y'all might want to call it these days. When anybody says something violent or appearing violent, they want to write you off as being terrorist, okay? So I'm just saying, I'm not a terrorist, I'm just truthful. And that's the reality. So I would leave in the manner of saying, let's follow Mr. Johnson, find out what he's talking about. He has a blueprint for reparation. Let's move in that direction and get on board with it. At least he has a plan, and it's a plan that we might be able to work with. Until we have economic parity, we're not going to have. We're going to keep on having socialist charity from all of these folks that suck on us, get everything out, write off a Negro with these nonprofits. That's what they're doing.
Right. Well, we don't think you're a terrorist, and we truly appreciate you.
Right off.
All the other leaders that are on here today. I thank you guys personally for your time. Thank you for sharing your insight, your wisdom, and again, being leaders out here on the forefront. I know that a lot of times it's a celebrity or a household name that we're looking for as leaders, but as you guys have shared and shown today when you showed up, that leaders are right in the community, right in our face. We just have to be present more and listen to them more. So again, I thank each and every one of you guys for sharing your time. And we will also want you guys to follow them on social media. I know a lot of you guys are active and engaged on there. So the last thing before we get out of here, and because I know we're running over time, is can each of you guys share your social media? How can people find you so they can follow you and keep up with where you guys are today? We can start with you, Jermaine.
Oh yeah, I put it in the chat room, The Real Black Historian.
Yeah, the audience is not going to see that.
Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, it's The Real Black Historian, all one word. The Real Black Historian.
Okay.
I would have picked Black Historian, but somebody stole it.
Oh.
April, you can go next. Share your.
The Destiny House on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay. We'll go with you, Dr. Z, Dr. Gloria.
I'm sorry, Pace News at Facebook, Pace News, you know, just Facebook Pace News, and Twitter at Pace News 1.
All right. Coach Woodard, Jeff, how can people follow you or find the efforts and leadership you're doing?
At pacenewsonline.com. I'm sorry, pacenewsonline.com always.
Well, Charlé Dollar, you know me, I'm in the streets all day, every day. Talk to the people. I believe in hand-to-hand combat, baby.
Right.
So, if anybody needs to contact me, they can do it through you or 901-605-5588, because that ain't all about who called me.
Okay.
What's that number again?
901-605-5588. Leave a message and I will get back with you. Trust me, I will do that.
Excellent.
We appreciate that. Everett?
Yeah, that's ESP_boss, BOSS.
Okay, thank you. And last but not least, Pastor Wright. Do you want me to say it or you want to?
Here, so it's it's just at Mia Wright on Instagram and Twitter, and Facebook is Mia K. Wright.
Okay. So again, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you taking your time, especially on this holiday. It was great to hear your voices, great to hear your insight and input. And until next time, I hope all you guys, unless anybody else has something to say, I'm going to sign off, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Thank you.
We who believe in freedom.